This is the other board, isn't it?
Really, really, really elaborate.
Spine specimen.
The catering department, Runshaw College in Leyland, Lancashire. Neil Cruikshanks is a professional chef with years of experience in top restaurants. He switched to teaching 10 years ago. Observing him is Head of Vocational Studies, Jill Gray. He's taking a patisserie lesson with students of very different abilities from NVQ levels 1, 2 and 3.
So, Terry, you're going to make the white chocolate creme brulee. You look it up in your book, go back to your table. Sarah, you're going to make the mandarin and Grand Marnier trifle. Hannah and Tom, look under your sweet pastry recipe in your booklet. Get all your ingredients ready and I'll come round and show you, OK? Remembering to use what type of bowl, James?
A metal bowl.
Excellent. Why is that?
Because it keeps it all cool.
Good lad. Excellent. OK? You'll notice on the right-hand side here too, there's 4 things there. From yesterday's session, Chris and Rob, who are our level 3 students, they're going to finish those things off today.
You've got students who are in the first year who were new to college.
That's right.
And students who were in the second year and have been here for a couple of years, and then you'd got your third years
That's
as well.
right.
So a real mix of students in there.
This evolved maybe about 4 or 5 years ago when it was back to my end days in industry, where the teamwork was the most important thing. And I felt as though having students who have real low self-esteem sometimes when they come in the first year, and they progress and they pass the first year. When they go on to year 2, it's always nice for them to actually pass on some of their information to year 1.
Steve, a level 2 student, has been asked to help new girl Susie make a chocolate tart.
If you have a bowl with it, you can release your elbows so when you're flooding in.
Stainless steel sit there.
That's it, because it's cold, yeah?
It's colder. So it won't rise.
So this is Susie.
Yeah.
And then you can get like one of these that fits over the top.
What's it like working with a year 2 student?
They're a lot more easier.
A lot easier?
They know more than me, so...
So does that help, you being able to ask the questions?
Yeah. I'm quite shy, so I don't usually ask teachers.
Oh, I'm not sure you're shy.
It can backfire on you sometimes when you do put so many different levels in one classroom. Some students think they maybe should be progressing a lot quicker than they are. And you can see straight away that, no, we need to track back, let's start again and go forward. And that's the main difficulty, really. But it's worked so well the last 4 or 5 years.
Meanwhile, the level 3 students have been left to work independently on making a lamb dish.
Yeah, you make sure they do them tight, but don't spoil the shape. Right, that's your Genoese sponge. Shaking the flour in. Shake it, go on, shaky, shaky. Come on. Nice and tight. When you cut it then, each individual ones, it's like a can of beans.
So you left them to do it, you weren't over them all the time, you left them and then come back and show them.
Again, it's an expensive piece of lamb.
But what you're not doing, though, is going in and saying, because it's expensive, I'm going to take over. You're giving them, you're showing them as much as they can without making them, but then you're giving them that chance. I particularly like this as well, where you're explaining where this joint comes from, you know.
Your line's coming down here, yeah? And this part is here. I mean, spine specimen there. Yeah? What it is there, when the butcher cuts it, you should cut it there and leave all this on. So that you can get that as thin as you can. And when you roll it up, you've got those lovely, you've got your meat, your black pudding, and then your fat around it.
One thing that is really evident throughout the lesson is the humour.
Where does leaf gelatin come from? Can you remember? Four legs, each grass all day in a field. That's right, a cow. Cow's bones.
It's great because the students remember things like that.
You see it start to thicken. Watch. Party of the Red Sea. You've heard that? Did you do that at school?
No.
Do you not go to
Grandma. She told me.
So if you do it too hard, see what happens?
Yeah.
You do it nice and light like that. Treat it like your boyfriend, OK? All right? What are you smiling at?
some of the students might leave the class remembering just one of those little bits of
Yeah, you
humour,
have to have humour. You have
and
to have
that's, you
humour.
know,
There's,
I've got to look after my pastry like my boyfriend, so every time they're making pastry, they might think that, you know, which is great.
Also, what you got to remember, that class is 3.5 hours long.
Absolutely.
You've got to have humour. It just makes not time go quicker. Like you said, it just makes them remember a bit more.
Absolutely.
But Jill thinks Neil could do more to boost the self-confidence of the students.
What happens is then you're making sure it's not sticking to the table. If you're going to do it like so, you'll never, ever, ever do it. It'll stick to your rolling pin, you'll get frustrated and you won't do a proper job. Get a saucer. We don't need to use fancy cutters. Just a saucer. So Graham, everybody, you're doing exactly the same, but you've got different types of pastry. And just let it drop in like so. All you're doing is, you're not pushing it in, you just let it, using the weight of the pastry to drop in. Again, that's a very difficult technique, and you need to have the students totally focused on something like that. And you simply either put your hand on it, like so, and then you've got a really nice pastry case. And I'll just do another one for you, just to make sure. Again, put your towel on there. Again, everything gentle, making sure, like so, or you can put your rolling pin across, whichever you feel comfortable with.
I think one thing I just picked up on, you rolled out and you actually cut out 2 rings and you demonstrated putting it in, and then you said, right, I'll do it again. Now, maybe you could have selected somebody to come and do it with you while the others are watching, just so somebody, you know, you actually demonstrated it twice and maybe get them involved, so they could actually say to the rest of the group, gosh, it's harder than it looks, and maybe you need to look at that, you know, rather than you doing two perfect ones, as it were.
So what's it called then? That's it, dropping consistency. Now, would you say that's dropping consistency? Just about. If it's not, we just add a slight bit more milk. OK, 3/4 fill your piping bag and I'll show you. Keep it on the move all the time. You'll notice the froth on the top, right? And you're making a Bavaria here, which is a Bavarian cream set with gelatine. If you don't cook this on glaze out enough, what happens is then, is it fails to set. So you must always thicken it first. This particular student is a very bright student, so I could have tested him a bit more there.
What you've picked up on there is what I've picked up on. There was one where you were making the chocolate sponge, and she talked about dropping consistency, and you said, well, if it becomes too thick, what you just put some milk in. Maybe you could have said, what do you think we could have done? So it's just asking those questions. Right, this is homemade Malibu and pineapple sorbet. It's absolutely beautiful. And it's so simple to make. Look how lovely that is. I still get a real buzz out of making something, thinking, that is really nice. And you want to put that on to students. Yeah. You can have Galliano. It doesn't matter what. You add it and then you put it in these ice cream machines and churn it until it gets to this beautiful. OK, so today you've done fantastic. You should all go out thinking, yeah, I have learned something today. But don't walk out them doors and forget it. You write your evidence up and you write your methods that you did it. At the end of the lesson, what you did, you gathered everyone around and you were really complimentary about how well they'd worked and everything, and you said to them, you've all learnt something today, which is great, but you actually don't know what they've learnt in terms of, for them to actually say, and I thought maybe something you could have done is just gathered at the end and say, right, just tell me one thing you've learnt in today's lesson, and it can be as daft as you want it to be. So, for example, and I can't think of the girl's name, about the pastry, Susie, you could say that treat your pastry like your boyfriend, but something that they could take away. It's a way of you checking that they've actually remembered something from that lesson.
For his next lesson, Neil's challenge is to try to involve students more in his demonstrations and to assess the students' learning at the end of the session.
You can put your water and juice and zest and caster sugar straight in your pan. By the time you might use the volume to make them small.
Today, the class is going to make fruit tarts.
What a mess.
Neil's next step is to prepare the pastry. And taking Jill's advice, he's asked Christina, one of the level 2s, to assist him.
Always start off round. Notice then we're not actually putting flour on the rolling pin. It's a waste of time. Right? Try to get into the habit of dusting your table and dusting the pastry. Nice and even, notice. You're doing that very gently, aren't you, Christina? OK, we get to see how even as a rolling is. It's not thick there or thin there, it's the right thickness all the way through. Right, so notice Christina picked it up. I don't do that, I use my rolling pin. But obviously, it's quite happy. That's crucial you get the right temperature of the pastry. If it's too soft, Christina would no chance of picking that up. OK, let me show me my technique first. Always work at 12 o'clock, like I said, on Tuesday. You're lifting and you're pushing. You're lifting and you're pushing down. Carry on, Christina. She's lifting and pushing down. Very gently. Very, very gently. OK? I prefer to do it with a rolling pin. That is absolutely beautiful. Right, one last tip there. She's so confident in doing this. When you've got it on here like so, don't be positive when you're transferring it from the table to the tray. Positive, do it straight away. OK? OK, way you go. Make sure they're nice and level. No, use a cloth, please.
Jill's hoping that getting more advanced students to help will become a regular habit. But she's not sure Neil's able to let go. Neil plans to end the lesson by surprising the students with a test of their knowledge.
Well, I think you should give yourselves a pat on the back, to be quite honest. Right? And I think the standards that you've done there are excellent. Susie, what type of sugar do we use in sweet pastry?
Caster sugar.
Good girl. Do you three know the different types of meringue before I ask you?
Yeah.
Good. Name me the 3 types of meringue, Tom. Number 1.
Swiss.
Sometimes birds go in them.
Nest.
Absolutely. Meringue nest. Good lad. Right. Name me the second one.
Boiled.
Another name for boiled.
Italian.
Excellent.
Yeah.
What could we use Italian meringue for? Very, very cold country. Eskimos, igloos.
I know.
Begins with A.
Baked Alaska.
L. A. Al. Good girl. Baked Alaska. OK? What is a baked Alaska, Martin?
Ice cream.
Absolutely. It's ice cream inside, yeah, with meringue. Good lad. Right, let's get ship shape and cleaned up. Good job they've done on these.
They've done really, really well. How did you feel actually standing back then and letting the student do the? Was it easy for you to do, or were you? I mean,
No, it's not. It
Yeah.
wasn't easy to do because obviously the student doesn't know as many techniques and as much knowledge as myself, but they knew enough knowledge to get it over. So with a bit of prompting from me, fine.
I could tell you were itching to get in, but you know, and you were right because you stopped in when you needed to, just to make sure it wasn't a disaster.
Yeah.
Because the same thing, a level 2 student demonstrated if it went wrong could knock their confidence. So
Sure, yeah.
you know, I thought that worked really well.
But no, I was really pleased with the lesson.
What about your questioning? You know, we talked about your questioning,
I
didn't
think
we,
with
the
more
other day?
direct questioning. I still think there is a place for opening questions
totally
sometimes,
agree, yeah.
where students say, well, can you help such and such a body out?
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
bring that on again,
I agree.
expand that question.
I just noticed though that you made the questions more challenging, and so that was really good the way you
It
developed
makes you
that.
stop and look back
Yeah.
and think, without a doubt.